and welcome back to my channel, where today I am starting video number 1 out of probably 2, where I go through my whole eyeshadow palette collection, and based off of performance and merit and comparison to what else I have, I am going to decide which palettes I want to keep and which palettes I'd like to pass along. I do have some palettes coming in, which I bought through Black Friday sales, and those are my Christmas gifts, so once they're here I can't play with them till Christmas. But I'm going to be considering those palettes as I go through what I've got in my stash currently to see, okay, I know this one's going to replace this one just in better quality or whatever. If you'd like to see that, then stick around. I did film this eyeshadow look. It was kind of a get ready with me where I used a new palette and also talked about my opinions as a conservative Christian woman and how I speak with my dollar as far as which brands I support and whatnot. That will be linked down below, and without further ado, let's look at some eyeshadow. Alright, so here is pretty much all of my palettes. It's just time I decluttered them. I mean, I don't get joy from all of them anymore. My tastes and styles have changed since I first started doing eyeshadow, which was about 10 months ago. So I decided I was just going to go through and have a nice little clear out. I wanted to make some room, get rid of some older stuff and whatnot. So I think we're going to start with the bigger palettes, and then we'll move probably just to brand. I only have a couple of brands, so the first thing I'm going to go with is this Morphe X James Charles palette. This was, truthfully, it was one of the very first palettes I bought. I had decided that I wanted to branch into color, and I decided to go for this one. I wasn't very impressed with the quality of this. I think it's a nice idea, but I don't really like the quality. I tried using this purple shade, you can see, several times, and I just never got a good result from it. I found that the pigments were not terribly buildable, that you just didn't get a lot of color payoff from the pans. So I think right off the bat, I'm going to pass this one along and declutter it. At this time, I try to sell some of my gently used palettes. I have an account with Poshmark, and I have bought and sold a few things there. If I can't sell them, then I'll probably donate them. So if you have any suggestions as far as where I can donate gently used makeup and cosmetics, then I would love to know, because I was looking into a few things for, you know, like women's homes and shelters and stuff. I mean, I definitely don't want to throw it away. There's nothing wrong with the product. It's just if it doesn't get as much use from my daily activities, then it can be loved by someone else. So this one right off the bat is going to go in my giveaway pile. Next, I'm going to take this one. This is Take Me Back to Brazil from BH Cosmetics. This is another rainbow palette. Again, just starting to branch into color, and this one came pretty well recommended. I understand, and I say regularly, this is not the best eyeshadow quality. It's an older formula from BH Cosmetics. It's just not the best. However, I think this one's better than the Morphe formula, and I kind of like this palette is funky to me, because while it's not the best quality and the best formula, I do enjoy the looks I get from it. It's pretty much all matte. Like this row here is sort of shimmery-ish, but it doesn't look like shimmer on the lid. And I like the variety, I like the tones. A lot of these tones work together. Like I had recently done a look with these reds and oranges and pinks, and then I often do blue, green, yellow, and then I'll break into the blue and purple. It's not the best quality, but I still have fun with this one, so I'm gonna keep that. Next larger palette is the Age of Opulence from Beauty Bay. I really dislike the outer packaging of this palette, but I think the palette itself is just gorgeous. It is glorious. This to me embodies the idea of like New Year's Eve party. It's like glitz, it's glam, it's deep, it's dramatic, it's romantic. I just really appreciate these colors. Now, I will say it's a super dark palette, so when I use this one, I've started pairing it with some lighter palettes, which you'll see later, just to sort of blend out the deeper tones into something a little bit more usable. So I like to pair this with something else, but this is a beautiful palette. It's got so much variety. I mean, obviously it's blue and purple, but then it's got these fantastic shimmers here, and it's got like these right here. Like this is a more yellowy shimmer, this is a more pink leaning shimmer, like a rosy. This gold digger shade up here is definitely a more bronze shimmer, whereas this is a vintage gold and this is more of a brown shimmer. So you get a lot of variety. You've got these different teals and blues and navies, and down here you have more oceanic blues, and then different purples. You've got like a deep plum, eggplant, burgundy, and then lighter purples. It's just a fantastic palette. So this one is definitely a keeper. And the same goes for the Wilderness palette, which I kind of bought this on a bandwagon purchase, but I'm glad I did. I did like the palette, but part of me bought it because I was already going to buy Age of Opulence, and I thought, well, hey, this is back in stock and people really love it. So, and I like the color story, so I decided to get it. This is a great palette as well. It has so much variety and depth. It's got light shades, it's got dark shades, it's got shimmers. You know, you've got green mattes and green shimmers. You've got blue mattes and a blue shimmer. You've got orangey, greeny mattes over here with a green shimmer and a green gold sort of shimmer up here. You've got a neutral skin tone that can blend something out. You can also use this to lighten up other colors. You've got the reds, and there's, you know, red mattes, orange mattes with a reddish shimmer. It's got a lot. You can get a lot of different looks from this. You could go ocean, you could go forest, you could go more, you could do red and green for Christmas if you wanted to. The last look I did with this palette was actually a very minty look, which surprised me that I could get such a look from, you know, this palette. But it's a great palette. It's good quality Beauty Bay, and I definitely am keeping this one. You hear that tongue trilling in the background? That's my baby girl. She recently figured out how to roll her tongue, and it's just awesome. Okay, the next big palette that I have is not that big. This is the Misunderstood palette from ColourPop with the Disney... Do you hear that? This is the Disney Villains collaboration. I like this palette. I bought this on Poshmark. It's got some cool details up here in the design. I really hate this reflective background, and several of the BH Cosmetics have this as well, and I find this to be highly distracting and actually very much detracting from the actual shades, because it's like your eyes are competing with the reflection when you're trying to figure out what the shade is and what its undertones and what its shifts may be. So I really dislike this metallic packaging. But anyway, this is a really fun palette. It's got a lot of variety in shades. It's great ColourPop quality. I'm probably not going to swatch in this video because I don't want to get, you know, I don't want to get shadows all over the palettes, especially if I try to resell them. But it's got these beautiful shades, but I just don't use it. I have found that I like to stay within a palette if possible when I'm creating a look, and this palette, while it's got some great shimmers, only has 5 mattes, one of which is a white and one of which is a black. So that's great if you want to lighten or deepen a look, but aside from that, these are your 3 transition options. And this is basically my skin tone, just a little more orangey, and this is a super deep blue. It's just, it doesn't, I don't know, this palette doesn't bring me the joy that I thought it would, and it doesn't spark the creativity that I want it to, so I'll probably pass this one along. Now let's go to ColourPop. ColourPop was my first love. ColourPop is the first brand that I discovered when I started doing eyeshadow, and I kind of fell into it. It was lucky that I happened upon a brand that was good quality. And I started off watching videos from Judy, and I love Judy. I love her style. I love her blending techniques. She has a more monochromatic style than I do, and when I first started with eyeshadow, I was really into her videos because she was doing what I wanted to do. So I bought a bunch of these monochromatic palettes from ColourPop, and I think I have more down here. Let's see. I bought a bunch of these monochromatic palettes from ColourPop because, you know, well, hey, I like the teal color, let's buy the teal palette. At this point in my life, I now have figured out my style a lot more and my tastes and preferences, and so I don't tend towards the monochromatic looks anymore. But some of these I'm going to keep because they're just great palettes, and I'm more comfortable now using them, pairing them, you know, take one from here and one from here, etc. So let's start with High Tide. High Tide, I was so excited when they launched a teal palette. This packaging, these little sea urchins, is great. And then it's these beautiful teal, minty tones. This is a great palette. It goes from dark to light. It's got enough mattes and transition colors that you can make a look work. It's great to pair with other things. It's good ColourPop quality. This shade in the middle is called Must See, and it's really, really beautiful. And then you've got like more a silvery shimmer over here, and then kind of a topper or inner corner highlight. This is a nice palette. I don't use it a lot, but I'm going to keep it because I really like this one. At the same time, they launched the Fine Feathered collection, which, again, I was very excited that they had launched a berry colored one, and I liked this feathery detailing. The inside of this palette, just the same as the High Tide, except this one has less depths. I mean, it's got some nice dark shades, but it doesn't have a very light toned matte. So you're like, there are only 2 shimmers in here. These 2 are shimmers right here. And then this is one of their sequin formula, so it's a matte with some sparkle in it, and the rest are matte. The colors are really beautiful, but I have found that pretty much whatever I do with this palette shows up on my eye the same way. And that's a little frustrating because I want depth and dimension in my eyeshadow looks, and I don't want every shadow to look the same on my skin. So This one is kind of, I don't know, like these two shades are, they look pretty much the same on the eye. These two look pretty much the same on the eye. These two look very similar. I don't know, I think I'm gonna pass this one along just because I don't get as much use out of it as I thought I would. All right, now let's go to Mint to Be. This has the plastic packaging, which I'm not a fan of, but you know, whatever. The Mint to Be palette is these lovely mint tones. This does have some decent depth. It's got lighter shimmers, it's got darker shimmers, it's got shimmers in the middle, and the fun thing about this palette is they're all different undertones. You know, this is a very minty undertone. Hope you can see it okay. This is a very minty undertone, and this is a much lighter undertone. Then these two are kind of silvery, but this is silvery with a darker green shift. And then these are more grungy, dusty mattes, but then over here we have more oceanic sea foam kinds of mattes, and then this is just a base matte green transition. So this palette has a lot to offer, and I'm going to keep it because it's an unusual color story, which I only have in the Wilderness palette on a smaller scale. So this one I'll keep. Next is the It's My Pleasure palette from ColourPop, also the plastic packaging. This palette, I go back and forth on this one. It's well loved. It seems like a lot of people who love purple eyeshadow really love this palette. It's got a duochrome, I think, or two. Honestly, this to me does not speak purple monochromatic. This one is because there's such variety. You've got some browns, you've got like a royal purple over here, and then some pinky tones, and it doesn't scream purple to me. I have gone back and forth a lot on this one as far as should I get rid of it, should I keep it, should I try to sell it, whatever. And I think for now I'm going to keep it because I want to challenge myself to use it before I make that decision. So I'm going to keep It's My Pleasure. And now we've got Making Mauves. I love this packaging. This is such beautiful packaging. ColourPop, when they do their cardboard packaging, they do such a great job. Compare it to the plastic packaging. I understand there are different methods to making the packaging and they have fewer options. But their cardboard packaging takes the cake well beyond the plastic packaging. But this is the Making Mauves palette. Mauves, I never remember how to say it. This palette, I love the shimmers in here. They are very special. They're really cool. These two are a little bit too close in my opinion. This one I like a lot. But I never use this palette because I feel like it's so close to my natural skin tone that it just doesn't show up. Like, I could pair it with other palettes and grab these shimmers, but I have so many pretty shimmers elsewhere, and I'd rather give this palette to somebody who maybe has a different skin tone or just different preferences in eyeshadow, and they would probably enjoy it more than I do. This doesn't get used in my collection, so I'm going to pass this one along. And we will jump into the Blue Moon palette. This is one of the best blue eyeshadow palettes. I say it all the time, one of my favorite YouTubers is Angelica Nyquist. She loves blue eyeshadow. She has tried so many more blue eyeshadows than I have, and this is like her favorite. This and I think something from Juvia's Place. But aside from Angie's opinion, this is a great palette. I did drop it. And so these have shifted slightly. Fortunately, nothing broke. But this is a great palette. It goes light to dark. It's got mattes, it's got shimmers, and the shimmers are unique. Like this shimmer, bright blue, electric blue shimmer. This shimmer is very silvery. Definitely a more neutral version, like a more neutral shimmer. This shimmer over here is like a topper. It's in like an iridescent blue. It's got some... I'm not swatching, I swear. I'm just trying to clean it off. But look at that. It's just so pretty. Beautiful blue. And then you've got different tones of blue. You've got true royal blue over here. You've got a navy. You've got this shimmer here, which is a deep blue shimmer. You've got a sky blue, like baby blue. You've got another sort of cornflower blue, I think, and then more periwinkle. It's got a lot. It offers a lot. You could do a really great monochromatic look with this palette and have everything you need in one spot. So this is sort of a staple. If I ever want blue, I think about this one. Okay, next we're gonna grab Lilac You a Lot. This is, again, very much like the blue palette. There's a lot to offer here. You've got different tones of purple. You've got more browny purples and then more mauvey and burgundy purples. You've got a light pink over here. You've got a true eggplant purple. Then you've got Zoned Out here, which is a light lavender sort of purple. And then you've got 4 shimmers, and each of the shimmers is different. There are no repeats in this palette. This shimmer has a gold shift. This shimmer has a pink shift. This shimmer is more of a true lilac lavender shift. This shimmer is even lighter. You can get a full, nicely dimensional monochromatic look from this palette. So this one, Lilac You a Lot from ColourPop, is definitely staying. And I think this is the last of my monochromatic palettes. I have already decluttered a couple because I bought a lot from the line. This is the Strawberry Shake, plastic packaging, not my favorite, and my package doesn't close all the way, which is a little annoying. But anyway, Strawberry Shake, This one, oh, you can hear from my voice that this one doesn't excite me. I thought it would. I think there's too much similarity here. These two shades are very similar. This one's darker, of course, but they're similar. And then these two, this one's a little more red, but they're the same tone, like the same depth, you know? There's nothing super dark in here, and there's nothing super light either. This peachy one over here, I find that I use this as my transition color every time I use the palette. And then I do like this shade right here, Take a Sip. It's a nice bright pink shimmer, but it's not crazy shimmery. It's actually probably a satin formula. And then we've got 3 shimmers here. Oh, there's this one. This is a lovely color. We've got 3 shimmers here. This is a very gold shimmer. This one's very light toned, like an icy pink, and then this one's more middle range pink. I think I'll keep this palette because I don't have these colors in others. Not really. But I probably use this and pair it with other palettes. I just wanted to pop in here and say that when I finally took my yes pile of palettes over to put them all away, I was a little overwhelmed and thinking, you know, I probably kept more than I should have because of nostalgia or uncertainty or, you know, I'll just give it another chance and see. But in reality, if I haven't used them for months, what are the odds that I'm going to use them again? And I have several palettes coming to me for Christmas, which I know will take up a bunch of time. I have the Michaela Glamlight palette and the Dirty Martini from Glamlight. I've got several palettes from Udensai coming as well. So my eyes are gonna be filled with those palettes and the excitement that they bring and new formulas, new shadows, new companies to try. So after further consideration, I have decided to pass along It's My Pleasure and Strawberry Shake because they're pretty. Someone else will get a lot more use out of them than I will, and that's that. So I'm sorry for being a little flaky and inconsistent here. Sometimes I talk myself into things, you know, and I have to just remind myself it's okay to move past something. I don't have to hold on to everything. It's okay to let go. So these guys are gonna be let go. Okay, I have 2 small ones here from ColourPop. This is Too Haute from the Comin' in Haute collection. This is their hot pink collection. It's got the nice 5-pan plastic packaging. This one I'm going to keep because I really wanted something that was hot pink, but without going so far as to buy their 9-pan Ooh La La. Sorry, let me open that up for you. There, the 9-pan Ooh La La. And I did have the watermelon slice one, but I decluttered that one a while back. So this one I wanted hot pink in a small palette, and this was a perfect fit for that. This one's got depth. It doesn't have a really light middle shade, a really light shade, but you could use this and just do a very light wash of it or blend it with a white somewhere else. And you've got 2 shimmers and no glitters. Yay, no glitters. So this one is going to stay. And then this one, this is Lyric. This one, my shade over here shattered, which was so annoying. This I wanted, okay, so I have almost no neutral palettes. Actually, I think I have no neutral palettes. I don't wear neutral eyeshadow. I don't really prefer it on myself. I like colorful eyeshadow, but I did want something where if I wanted to go neutral, I had the option. So I decided to buy just a small brown palette. I have brown eyes, I have brown hair, although it's got a lot of silver in it now. But I just wanted some sort of brown option, and this had some nice depth from light to dark, and the middle shade that's really pretty, and that one, although it shattered, I tried to press it back in, and there's a little bit in the pan left, so I can still use that one. And this glitter's not too objectionable, so if I use this palette, I probably do use the glitter a little bit, because it might be for like an evening look or something. That one I'm going to keep as well. Okay, moving on, we are going to continue with ColourPop. This is the What Dreams Are Made Of Lizzie McGuire collaboration. This one's really fun. I like the springtime, summery sort of tones of this palette. I think it's got nice variety. It does have some lighter mattes and then a couple darker mattes. It's got variety with the pinks and greens. It's definitely not even monochromatic within that variety, you know? Your pink and purple side has a deep purple, a shimmery pinky purple, a pink matte, and then it's got these 2 more lavender purples, which honestly, if these were the only shades that I wanted, I could probably easily dupe that with my Lilac You A Lot palette, but I like them together with the rest of these. And then it's got this transition shade here, and then over on this side we've got more greens and peachy tones. These 2 shades can work really well with the peachy tones. We've got 2 shimmers here. This one I think is a pressed glitter, but I think it is, yeah. And then these lovely limes, and I'm kind of a sucker for green eyeshadow and bright green eyeshadow, so these I use almost every time I use this palette. I use these. So I'm going to keep this palette. I'm not the sort of person who will do a look based on the season, but I sometimes do get in that sort of a mood, and so this to me is just speaks like springtime. So I'll keep this palette. Now we have Sweet Talk from ColourPop. This palette comes so highly recommended from so many people that I respect and watch online. But for me, I never use this palette. This palette for me is very orange. On my skin tone, this just comes across as orange. I wanted something that was peach and coral. And for me, this palette did not provide that. These two shades are, this one's definitely more peachy, but they just kind of, and this one too, they just kind of look the same on my skin. This one is just a waste, like it does nothing on my skin tone. This is obviously an orange, and then we have a couple deepening shades over here. Like, it's a nice palette. I know some people who really love it, but I never use this palette. I don't get any joy from it. I just don't use it. So I'm gonna pass Sweet Talk on to someone else who will hopefully enjoy it a lot more than I did. Okay, now limoncello. I spent some time living in Italy. I speak some Italian. I have a friend in Italy. We go back and forth in alternating languages. I have some classical music education, and I just love everything Italian. So when I saw this packaging, I fell in love with it. I'm a little ashamed to admit that part of the reason I bought this palette was for the packaging, because this just makes me happy. I love this. Actually, this year, 2021's planner that I have is like a blue lemon theme, and I love it. This packaging is also much better quality than other packaging from ColourPop. It's the thicker packaging, and you'll see on the inside it has the bigger pans. But I mean, come on. This is just too pretty. See my fireplace? Yeah, you guys are on my fireplace. It's so pretty. Now, when I look at the color story, it doesn't jump out at me. It's pretty. It's basically a neutral color story, a neutral palette with some yellow and a little pop of blue here, and there's this green, but it's not super lime. The color story I do not love, but when I want yellow or more muted browns, or even dipping into this Fly Girl, which is like an orangey, bronzy sort of shade, and this palette has the variety of some lighter tones and some deepening tones and then little pops of color, I think about this palette. And sometimes, like, I almost always grab this one if I'm wearing a yellow shirt. And this palette makes me smile. This sparks joy. So I'm gonna keep limoncello. Now we're moving on to Ornate. This also was one of the first palettes that I bought when I started doing eyeshadow. This was from their Dark Blooms collection, and I love the packaging of these palettes. I had this one, and I had Baroque. I almost bought Grandeur, but I didn't. I bought this one because I saw a tutorial from Angela Bright, and she did such a gorgeous look with it. But when I bought it, again, look at this packaging. So pretty. When I bought it, I just didn't use them very much. It was a lot warmer than I was used to. I'm a cool toned skin tone, and so to have a palette which was so warm toned kind of, I think in the beginning it scared me a little bit. I had planned on decluttering this one, but I think that I might keep it, because looking at it now, it does have some decent variety. Like, it's got some beautiful, what would this shade be? They're like peachy berries almost, you know? They're not peach, they're not coral, but they're not true berries. They've got hints of orange in them. It's got interesting colors. It's got a mustard yellow, which is a nice transition tone. It's got 3 pretty mattes. It's got a black, so you can deepen up anything, or you could keep it light. So I think that even though I was planning on decluttering this one, I think I'm gonna put it back in my collection for a little while and see if it gets any use. Now we've got Sprinkle a Little Magic, also from ColourPop. We're all still in ColourPop. This palette, just like the limoncello, it has better quality packaging. It's thicker, it's sturdier. This one's got some really cute little elements over here with different textures and raised elements. It's got some glitter on it, which some people I've heard complain about it because the glitter, on mine, the glitter doesn't come off everywhere. Not so much that it bothers me, but just look at this packaging. It's really well done. But then what actually matters, is not the packaging, but the color story on the inside of the palette. Sorry, this palette's a little bit dirty because I dropped it and it broke a bit, so I had to kind of press these 2 shimmers back in place. Anyway, this is a really pretty palette. This palette is great quality cosmetic. It's got, these 2 are a little bit too close in my opinion. I wish we'd had a more medium toned pink shade, but these pinks and this green make a nice transition. This is a great deepening shade. All 5 of these shimmers work well with any of the mattes. It's really well done. It's well thought out. And the formula, you know, here I am pressing them back in. The formula is really pretty. So yeah, this palette is definitely gonna stay. I've done 2 looks with this one. One of the looks was more green, and then one of those looks was more of a pinky burgundy tone, and they were both really pretty. So I'm gonna keep this palette. Okay, the next palette in the lineup is Coastal Coral from ColourPop. This is another one that had just such pretty packaging, and it carried through to the inside as well. This palette, I bought this one because I wanted something that was coral and not as orange as Sweet Talk was, but I don't know. This one ended up disappointing me as well. Again, it didn't have a lot of depth. I mean, it had, you know, this is a pretty light shade, but it was so light it barely showed up on my skin. It was more just a dusty sort of color. And then this shade was really pretty. I liked this one. But these 3 shades, they all look the same on the eye. And then the shimmers are also very similar. You've got, this is more of an orangey shimmer, and then this is more of a gold shimmer. And this one kind of lands somewhere between the 2. And then this is a good deepening shade, but it's still almost a mid-tone. It's not a super deep shade, so you're not going to get a lot of depth and drama out of just this palette. So I don't know, it was a little bit of a disappointment to me, so I think I'm going to pass that one along as well. Especially since now my collection has expanded a bit, and so I have some more of these types of tones elsewhere. Next is Lush Life from ColourPop. This palette, I don't think I'll ever get rid of this palette. This palette was such a winner. I mean, look at the cute details. This palette was awesome. It was, I don't love this inner packaging, this very reflective side of things, but if you just look at the colors, the first time I saw this palette, I was like, oh, okay, maybe. And then as soon as I started seeing videos of people and the kind of looks that they were getting out of it, I knew for sure it was for me. And I think this palette was one that kind of launched me into figuring out what my style really was, with like depth and bold colors and just really colorful looks, not so much the neutral or monochromatic side of things. So this palette was kind of my gateway palette, and I love it. It is tried and true. It has so much variety. It's got more corals and peaches, it's got greens, it's got blues, it's got a more red terracotta sort of tones, it's got shimmers, it's got mattes, it's got a blend where you have, you know, a shimmer and a matte in the same color family, and here as well. And then here you've got green, matte and shimmer, blue, matte and shimmer. Up here you've got 2 different shimmers that are both light enough to be used as inner corner highlights, but they could also just be used as lid shades. You know, this one is more of a gold, and then this one has a much lighter toned, almost peach gold, and then you've got a transition shade, and you've got a deepening shade, and oh my goodness, this palette is fantastic. ColourPop's Lush Life palette, awesome palette, not getting rid of this guy. Okay, here we have the Child from the Star Wars X Mandalorian collection. Just like Sprinkle a Little Magic and Limoncello, this palette has better quality packaging. It's thicker, it's sturdier, it's just better. Again, because it's one of their cardboard palettes, it has the cutest details and elements, and they just put a lot of effort and time and attention to detail into creating this packaging. You can see the different reflective areas, and then on the inside it carries through. There's a mirror, and you've got cute little baby Yoda over here, cutest in the galaxy, and then even onto the palette itself there are more details, these little spots or drops. Little frog over here. Okay, so I will admit, and I admitted when I did a tutorial recently of this on this palette, I've never seen Star Wars. I know it is a hugely beloved franchise. It's just, I've never seen it. However, Baby Yoda is adorable. I mean, he's so cute. And while I don't get any of the references within this palette, I mean, I understand some basic Star Wars references based on just living in America and people loving Star Wars. Kind of like, I don't know anything about football, but I understand basic football references and whatnot. So I understand a little bit of this, but the references don't matter. The shade names to me don't matter. What I love about this palette, this is like my favorite olive green palette. It's got warm tones over here. It's got cooler tones over here. It's got a gold shimmer if you want to stay on the warmer side of things. It's got a silver shimmer if you want to stay on the cooler side of things. You could put them together. That's my baby in the background. She likes to make noise. I just did a tutorial on my YouTube channel where I paired both of these shimmers together in one look, and it was just interesting. It's got a lot of depth. It's got lighter tones over here. It's got darker tones for deepening out a look. It's got mid-tones. It's got shimmers in different tones. Like this is just a gold shimmer, beautiful highlight shade. Or you could put it on your lid if you wanted like a really light and dark color combo. This palette just has a lot to offer in terms of variety and texture, and it's a great palette. This is an awesome palette. So the child palette is definitely staying. All right, now we have the So Very Lovely palette from ColourPop, more of the cardboard packaging, which I do prefer. This one does not have a mirror. I really go back and forth on this palette. I love the shimmers, they're really pretty. This pop of purple I thought was very unique. It doesn't go on the lid as pigmented as I would like. And this palette has some variety because I've made a very red gold look from it using these shades over here, but then you can go to the other side of the spectrum and do more light peachy purpley looks. It's got a great deepening shade. This is Topanga Boulevard. This is a beautiful color. And then it's got some really nice shimmers. So, I mean, and the shimmers have variety as well. You have a straight up gold shimmer. You've got a peachy shimmer. You've got more of a lavender lilac shimmer. You've got sort of a neutral silvery kind of shimmer. This is just a different darker peach shimmer, and then you have a purpley pinky shimmer, and it actually offers a lot. I don't reach for this palette. I have considered several times, I've considered buying like a Z palette and depotting some of my favorite shades from these palettes, which I'm kind of putting in the no pile, but the problem is that I would prefer to pass on the palette to somebody who will use it and appreciate the whole thing, rather than tear it apart and just get a couple shadows, when really my collection is big enough at this point where I have some really fantastic shadows. And so I don't really need to disassemble a palette just for one or two shades when I could pass it along and have somebody else get much better use out of it and enjoy it more than I did, and I can just, you know, use what I have left. So, you know, my daughter has expressed that she really likes this palette. I have decided that I'm saving a couple of, like 2 or 3 palettes, probably 2 palettes for her, for when she gets older and she wants to play with eyeshadow. It's a great palette. I just don't use it. And hopefully she'll like it and play with it. And these shimmers are really, really pretty. So, yeah. Anyway, I'm going to pass this on to my daughter. Okay, we are almost done ColourPop. Now we are at the At Forest Site palette, which was ColourPop and Raw Beauty Kristi. I love this palette. The first time I saw it, first off, I fell in love with the packaging. Like, this is so adorable. But it's not like cutesy adorable, you know, it's not, it's like a, oh my goodness. I do watercolor painting and I love watercolor, so these watercolor elements and how it all just sort of fades into nothing, and then these cute little mushrooms that are kind of cartoony, but not, you know, little cutesy kid sort of cartoony. I just think it's so well done. The name, the colors of the packaging, I love the packaging. But then the inside. First off, the packaging carries through to here, which is lovely. And then the inside. The first time I saw the inside of this palette, I knew that I would love it. And I was completely bummed that I missed the train on it, because I didn't even discover eyeshadow until this was already sold out. Like, this palette was, you could not get your hands on it. Finally, after months and months of just keeping an eye out, I found it for sale on Poshmark for a reasonable price. Once in a while I would find one for sale, but they were like $80, $100. Like, no matter how much I love the eyeshadow palette, I'm not going to spend that kind of money on it. And I found one that was listed for something much more reasonably. I don't know, it was like, I think she had it listed for like 30 or 40, and I negotiated it down to about 22. So it was a few dollars more than I wanted to pay, but I was so excited. And then when I got it in the mail and I opened it up, I was like, yes, this is so beautiful. It's these deep jewel tone, but, you know, over here we've got some grungy tones. It's mostly matte because I prefer more mattes than shimmers in my palettes. And this collection did come with a couple of Super Shock shimmers, so if you wanted more shimmers, Kristi released a couple that matched the general color scheme. But this palette, mainly matte, you can do a lot. It's got a few transition shades in more neutral tones or more light tones. It's got some medium tones, and then it's got these dark tones. It's got black you could deepen it out with. It's got a goldish shimmer and then a greenish shimmer, and everything works together. You could do a palette bingo with this, and no matter what numbers you got, your look would be beautiful. There's nothing in here that doesn't work with the other colors. It's just so well done. This palette, At Forest Site, absolutely keeping this guy. And finally, this is not a proper palette. This is just an empty palette where I have a few shadows. I bought these myself. I've never bought any singles other than this because I've discovered that I don't really prefer having singles, and I'm not the type of person to build my own palette. I just kind of like to buy a pre-curated color story. At least that's where I am right now. But these singles are really pretty. They're all from ColourPop. This is Gridlock. This is Heiress. And then this one, I don't know if the shade is named 000, triple aught, or if it doesn't have a shade name. I don't know. Anyway, these are the 3 I have. As you can see, I have never used them because I don't remember that they exist. The Gridlock, this was in the Mar palette. Remember the Soul and Mar palettes from ColourPop? The Mar palette was reviewed by Judy, and she said that the Gridlock shade was worth buying the entire palette just for that shade. So I bought it as a single. And then this one actually made me think of that lovely purple color in So Very Lovely, which I wanted to be more pigmented than it is. And so this was me, you know, getting a light lavendery purple, hoping that I would find one that was pigmented. And then this one I just thought was really pretty, and it was on sale. But I haven't used them yet because I forget that they're here. So I'm going to keep them just because it's not a complete palette. It's not even a full set of anything. They're just these random colors, but I have to try to remind myself that I have them. And that is it for ColourPop. Now I'm going to move on to my last brand, which is BH Cosmetics. Okay guys, that is the end of the first video about my eyeshadow palette Declutter 2021. I went through all of my ColourPop as well as my Beauty Bay, and in the next video I'm going to launch into the rest of my BH Cosmetics. So thank you for hanging out with me. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye. This is my very red gold look using these shades over here, and then other times I can get a much more